All right, let's go ahead and create our very first unit test. So to create a test for this interface, you can go ahead and navigate to the Navigate tab, and then simply select Test right here. And you can see the keyboard shortcut is Shift Command T. So what I'm going to do here is simply press Shift Command T. And you can see that we have a prompt that tells us to create a new test. So if we already had a test, it would have simply picked that up, and then we could have navigated directly into that test. So let's go ahead and simply create a new test. And right here, you can see that we have the testing library, JUnit 5. You can leave the name as it is. So I usually never change these names, right? So the convention is the actual interface or class name. In our case is customer repository, and then at the end you should always have test, right? So this is the naming convention. And then right here you can see that we can generate a couple of methods right here. So at setup, so this is a method that runs before each test, and then right here at tear down runs after each test, but we don't need these two methods for now. So right here you can also see that you can select the member for which you want to create a test. So let me go ahead and select this and then simply say OK. And there we go. So now we have our test class. So if I press Command Shift T, and right here you can see that I can go back to the class being tested. So right here, let me simply press enter, and you can see that I go back to my interface, to my customer repository. If I press again Command Shift T, you can see that it picks the test up, and then I can navigate straight into the test. There we go. Now let's go ahead and run this class. So simply click at the very top on the green icon and then simply run. And there you go. So you can see that we have one test right here. So select customer by phone number, and everything passed, right? So we're not doing anything, but everything passed. So what we're going to do here is, so let me simply collapse this. And what I'm going to do is simply remove this test right here, and right here press Control and then enter. And then right here, you see that we can generate a test method, right? So we can generate a test method, a setup, tier, before class, after class, so on and so forth. So right here on the test method, click on the right arrow and then edit template. And right here, what I want to do is simply add it and then should. So this will simply name all the test classes, all the test methods, it should, and then the actual name, right? And what I'm going to do, and also what I'm going to do is inside of the body. So inside of the body, what I'm going to do is simply add a comment. So this will be given, and then right here, when, and then right here, and then, right? So this gives me a clear and concise way of laying out my tests, right? So this is using the behavior driven style, right? So I'm going to explain more about this in a second, but basically now let me take the body right here and put it, so let me actually delete that line and then put the body right here. Now if I press OK and check this out, now if I press Control and then enter, and let me now simply press enter again, you can see that we get the test, right? So at test, and then it should, and then the name. So what we want to name this, right? So what we are testing here is whether we can select a customer by phone number. So it should select customer by and then phone number. There we go. Now obviously you can add some spaces around these, but basically now given, so this is the actual setup. So right, given something, and then when, so when we invoke our method, and then this is the actual assertion, right? So let's go ahead here and simply say private and then customer and then repository, and we're going to name this as under and then test. So I like to name all my classes being under testing as under test. So I could have simply named this as customer repository, but because this is a test, I'm going to name this as under and then test. So then I know if I've got a bunch of other classes, I definitely know which one is the class I'm testing. So now let's go ahead and simply say at and then auto wired. And in order for us to be able to test against a H2 database, we have to use this add and then JPA, or actually data JPA test. So this allows us to test our JPA queries, right? So if I go back to customer repository right here, right? So this is an interface and this is basically JPA, right? So right here, data JPA repository. So if I go back and if I run the test, so nothing should change. This should still run, and you can see that now it's running a few other things. And there we go. So now the test executed, but now you can see that we have a bunch of other things going on, right? So right here you can see that what's happening is it's doing few things. So it's actually, let me see, yeah, so this is the beginning. So it's dropping the table if exists, so drop table customer if exists, and then it's creating the table right here. So create the table right here. You can see this is the actual ID, binary not null, name varchar, phone number, primary key, and then at the end of the test is actually dropping the table if exists. So then we have a clean database that we can use for all the tests, right? So I think this is all for this video. I just want you to first understand exactly how we do things, but the key from this video here is make sure that you follow this pattern right here. So given, when, then, because this will make it easy for you to write your tests. And also this annotation is very important when it comes for testing your JPA queries, right? So this is how you can test this query right here. So if I go back to the customer repository, so we want to test that this query works, right? So if I go back, and there we go. So next, let's go ahead and actually write some tests.